Chelsea failed to ramp up their pre-season preparations as Xabi Alonso's side suffered a 1-0 defeat to Juventus in Hong Kong. And former Chelsea midfielder and assistant manager Jody Morris is here. What have you made of them in pre-season and the squad that Xabi Alonso is building?
I don't think they've been great, to be honest. Obviously, the last two games that we've played where we've lost against Spurs and obviously yesterday against Juve. I mean, I enjoyed the first game because there was a lot of young players getting a little bit of playing time. Thought that they performed really well, but I think it's difficult to really sort of gauge how he's going to play at the moment. I thought it was 4-3-3 in the first game. Not quite sure what they done a couple of times against Spurs, and then it looked like a 4-4-2 yesterday. So the pitch that they're playing on, I can't sort of overstate this. The pitch that they're playing on is awful. So the quality of the games that they've been performing on has not been great. But I think that we won't get a sort of a clearer indication until the sort of next 10 days or so with how he's going to play, which I think is the biggest question.
Right now, could you see them being Premier League title contenders? We know that in terms of depth, they've got nearly 50 players. That will change, of course. That will come down. And they've also had experience, which all the Chelsea fans wanted to see, and I think everybody from the outside could see. But how far are they from challenging the title?
No, I think we're quite a way away, to be honest. And you speak about depth in squad. I think the numbers doesn't necessarily give you good depth, because if you've got a number of players that I don't think are at Chelsea's level or good enough to be in a challenging Chelsea team, that those numbers don't mean anything. It only means, can you get a loan fee and can you maybe generate some more money coming through the door? So I think the amount of problems is a problem for a manager or a head coach. So yeah, as I said, depth. If you have quality, then you have depth. I do think adding your Jordan Hendersons and your Danny Welbecks, I think that is great for the group as a whole. But I would have maybe have liked, and I really like Jordan Henderson, really like Danny Welbeck. I wouldn't have minded a little bit more experience in the starting 11. I'm not too sure that those two players will be starting week in, week out. And I think that can dilute the influence that you have on the group a little bit. I mean, they'll still be amazing to have around the place, particularly Jordan Henderson. I think he's someone who can have a huge influence on not just the younger players, but the club as a whole. So we're certainly not worse off than what we were without those players, but I think sometimes adding experience in maybe your sort of guaranteed 6, 7, 8 starters in the team is a little bit more important.
Because he obviously wanted that experience because he went for Xhaka as well earlier on in the summer. You talked about there, when it comes to the depth, the quality. Is there an area of the team, let's say, which needs more quality?
I think that we've been trying to add to it. I think defensively is where we needed to add a little bit of quality. They've obviously gone for Lacroix from Crystal Palace. The only worry I have about Lacroix is that I felt he performed so well at Crystal Palace in a back three. Not necessarily the same levels of performance when he played in a 4 for France. I think that would be a slight worry for me personally, but
unless he plays 3 at the
But that's what I'm saying. If the manager is intending on playing a 3 at the back, or maybe being a little bit fluid as far as he might change from game to game, or depending on the opponent or who's available or who's playing well, I do think that's something that is really good to have in your locker, the ability to maybe fluidly move from formation to formation without compromising your principles. But that's what I'm more intrigued about regarding the Xabi Alonso era at the moment, is not necessarily what other players we're going to get through the door. It's how we're going to play, which will maybe dictate where certain players fit in.
Is there a player or players that you think that particularly would work for Chelsea right now that you'd like to see them bring in?
I would have loved to have been in a position where we can go after a Barcola. But I said this previously, I mean, I was really surprised that we managed to get Morgan Rogers through the door when he's playing for a team that's already in the Champions League and reportedly had the champions of England after him as well. I was really surprised that we managed to get him through the door. So I think it would be wishful thinking if we was then able to get another player of that ilk who's just won the Champions League twice.
Would one more player of that ilk be enough to challenge for the title, though?
No, I don't think so. I think that we need to start establishing ourselves as a sort of top 4 regular team that is going to be maybe trying to make improvements from where we've been previously. I mean, the underperforming nature of the group last year was so far way off where we should be. We need to start building a bit of consistency, and particularly from how mature our performances are during games. The change from the first half to the second half, whether it be good first and poor in the second, or vice versa, was so vast in so many games last year that the consistency levels is the most important thing that we need to start getting up to the levels that Chelsea are expecting.
I asked you about Yaisley getting time at Newcastle United, sorry. But what about Alonso at Chelsea? He comes in with a great CV, brilliant at Bayer, Leverkusen. Real Madrid, he didn't get very long there, but the fact is he was Real Madrid manager and wasn't doing badly at all, all right? There was different reasons why he left. He's known in the Premier League as a player. Do you think he will get more time than, let's say, Rafinha got, let's say Potter got, etc., because of what he's done in the game already?
Yeah, I absolutely think he'll get more time. I think the fact that I imagine, or it seemed to be reported that he had a good few options, Xabi Alonso. The fact that he's chosen Chelsea, considering where we are with how bad the season was last year, I think bodes well for the amount of time that he'd get, because I imagine in those meetings, whilst agreeing to come to Chelsea, and again, kudos to the owners for managing to get him through the door like a Morgan Rogers. I think they have options, and the fact that they've chosen Chelsea means that I believe that he'll get given time. But you're right, amazing job at Leverkusen. If you look at his points per game ratio at Real Madrid, it was fantastic. And Real Madrid's a different animal to most teams in world football as far as long as how much time you'll get. But I think he'll be a better manager and a better coach for having that period at Real Madrid anyway, because I think the more experience you gain as a coach or a manager, I think it puts you in a better position to be able to deal with certain scenarios.
Tell us the difference between manager and head coach, because he is manager rather than head coach at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think it may look good on paper that, a lot of the Chelsea fans are talking about, he's a manager, it's the first one. But when you still have people in roles, whether it be sporting directors or head of recruitment, when they're still doing their jobs, I'm not too sure that there's going to be that much difference. Maybe the fact that he will get final say on whoever's coming through the door may sort of lean itself to being a bit more of a manager rather than having to deal with certain players that either recruitment or sporting directors believe to be really good for the current makeup of the squad. Yeah, it certainly looks better on paper, but I think we have to wait to see how things materialise to see if the proof's in the
pudding. The structure above him hasn't really changed.
No, exactly.
First game of the season is against Fulham. What would your starting 11 be?
Well, I named a starting 11 earlier, which I was just picking purely on the fact that I think that these are the players that we're either need to get really behind. As far as Esteval, I think he has to play. I think his ceiling as a player is absolutely outstanding. You've just shelled out for Lacroix and Rogers. They've got to be in the team. And if you're managing to keep hold of your better players as your Reece James, Cole Wills, Palmers, João Pedros, Enzo Fernandez, I think that they would find themselves in the starting lineup as well. So there's a little mix of players that have been brought in. If they change formation, I could very much come up with a different starting 11. But just because of what we've seen so far, I think that this wouldn't be too far off, depending if we get in another left-back. We've also signed Palestri, who comes with a big reputation from the Serie A. So if you did play three at the back, then you may see a Reece at the right side of a three.
Here's a message from Ian that's just come into us there. Chelsea just buy anyone and everyone, even if the players are older. Have the board learned anything? So Ian's not particularly happy with Chelsea's transfer policy. What do you say to him?
Well, I don't think they buy anyone and everyone. I think you can maybe aim a lot of criticism at buying just young players. But the fact that they've gone out and looked at your Chakas, your Jordan Hendersons, your Danny Welbecks, I think it does lean towards the fact that maybe some of the owners or the people in charge of the big decisions at the club have thought that that's maybe not the best way to go completely down that route of just young players. I mean, I always feel the best way to develop young players is to add experience around them. But that goes back to my point of sometimes being the main players on the pitch with experience, like what Thiago Silva done at the football club, like what Marcel Desailly done for John Terry coming through at the football club. Sometimes the importance of a player that's one of the first names on the team sheet being experienced and a really good pro and really good around the group can sometimes elevate the younger players at a faster rate than not necessarily players that are going to be sort of in and out the team. It can dilute their influence, I feel.
Right, we've got a transfer update.